Hello, everybody. I'm Joe Warbick, Certified Financial Planner.
And I'm Doug Harding. I'm his co-host. Thank you, everybody, for being with us today on retirement, everything they never told you. Hey, Joe, I got to admit something to you real quick. And
is this, you're not going to like bare your soul to me, are you? This is a podcast. And when you, did you commit a crime? Is this, because everybody can hear this, Doug, so I don't know if you want to go down this. You have to admit something to me. That's deep, man. That's deep.
I've never been convicted, but I'm not going to admit to a crime. Well, unless staring at your phone too much is a crime.
God, can we talk about that for a second? I hate my phone. I hate it. I do. It is so addictive. It's like crack. Not that I know what crack is like, but if I had to imagine what crack would be like, I think my phone is crack. It's like I want to pick it up. I want to look at it, and I hate that. I want to be a person again. I don't want to be the zombie tied to my phone.
You know, something I've realized that I've done a lot, especially with my phone, is, I don't know if you're the same here, Joe, but when I'm watching TV or a movie, I get distracted by my phone and I'll check it, and then I'll miss stuff in the movie.
Yeah. It's like you got this multi-billion-dollar budget, big production Hollywood budget going on movie, and we're supposed to be enjoying it. And I'm like, oh, well, let me see what's going on my phone. And it's not good. But what stinks is they knew they were doing this. When they designed the iPhone, they designed it to be addictive. They designed it so that our brains would just crave that information, and they knew our heads would be down. I just went to get a blood draw 2 days ago. I'm sitting in the waiting room, and there's 10 people in there, and every single one of them, from the 85-year-old woman down to the 19-year-old guy, every single one of them had their faces buried in their phone, which I know it's not bad. There's nothing to do in a waiting room, but you could talk to somebody. You could strike up a conversation with the neighbor next door. You could do something other. But these phones just, they tie us up. Anyway, I don't think that's where we were going with this, but.
Well, I was going to bring something else up is, speaking of phone, have you ever been in an elevator and you get in, there's strangers in there, and then immediately they get on their phone? I don't know what they're checking in that 30-second ride up to the 5th floor, but yeah, it's everywhere. Our phones are an appendage. And you know what? I'm guilty of it myself. But one thing that I find myself checking multiple times a day on my little stock market app, and the market's going up, market's going down, and it gets my, endorphins all going. And oh my gosh, the market's down today. Oh, I'm in so much trouble. And it's down by, sometimes just minor points, but market.
I have to check the markets every day. I manage hundreds of millions of dollars, so it's very important to me to know what's going on with my clients' accounts, with the stock market overall, with the economy. But you, Doug, you don't need to worry about the market at all. You're a young man. You're not going to touch this money. So like we said in our last episode, you want the market to be down right now. You want it to be underperforming. But let's talk about the market, because I'm hearing from people, it's a big pullback, and the market's collapsing. Do you know, from the lows in the early part of this year after the tariff debacle we had, the NASDAQ is up nearly 50% since then.
That's great.
The S&P 500 over 35%, the Dow Jones over 25%. And right now it's only off its highs by between 3 to 5%, which means the market's still up. Markets go up and then they come back a little bit. And it's okay. It's normal. It's what's going to happen. It's when we see a 15 to 20% pullback, when we exceed that 10% and we go into what's known as correction territory.
Right.
And then when we exceed the 20% peak to trough, which is kind of like when the market hits a high, that's your peak. And then when it falls down, the trough down here, what's the low? What's the max drawdown inside the market? If that exceeds 20%, then you're in official bear market territory, which 6% or 5% or 4% is neither correction nor bear market territory. So we're good, and to have a 30 to 50% run up in just 6 months, It's okay to have a pullback. There's nothing wrong with it. And this reminds me, and I just have to bring this up because it's driving me crazy. And you brought up the markets, and you're checking the markets every day. And if you have a good portfolio, you shouldn't have to check your markets every day. But what's funny is I used to tell my clients years ago, I used to say, you can check your portfolio, but wouldn't it be wild if somebody could tell you what the value of your house was and they could like send you a report, like you get your 401k statement? I said, wouldn't that be wild? I said, that would be a terrible idea because then people will want to be selling their houses when it's high and freaking out when it's low. And I never thought we would have a technology that could do that. And then Zillow and Redfin came along, and anybody can log in at any time and check the value of their house, which it's not a good idea because that's your home. That's not your investment portfolio. Now, if it's your second home or your third home or your vacation home or your investment, that's different. But what I wanted to go down the road here was there's articles. I don't know if you've seen these articles. One just popped up on my feed. 52% of all U.S. households or all U.S. houses lose value.
Why is that?
And I was like, they got me, which is what they're supposed to do. I went, whoa, 52% of households lose value. I got to check this. And of course, what they're saying, just like the stock market, we've had a small pullback in the value of homes, which we've seen 30 to 60% increases in home values, just like we saw in the stock market. And just because it's pulling back, maybe 3-4% in your neighborhood, maybe in big cities where we saw 200 and 300% increases, it might be maybe it's pulling back 9%. Who cares? Who cares if your house 3 years ago was worth $300,000 and you live in a city and now it's worth $1.2 million, and then it pulls back to $1.1 million. You're okay.
Yeah.
You are doing just fine. Where you have to worry about that is if you get upside down in your house. And if you bought the house a few years ago, you're probably not upside down.
No.
Unless you bought it at the very peak and you didn't put any money down, if you were able to get one of those weird no money down mortgages. But if you've had your home for 5 years, 10 years, you're probably in the green. Unless, and this is a chapter in one of my books, which I have a best-selling book out there, Everything They Never Told You. Your house is not your bank. So you should not be going into your home borrowing money, pulling money out of your house. So if you're doing that, then there is a good chance that your house is worth less than the loan on your home because you're pulling money out of it. But I got way out of topic there because you had an idea and I went, like I said I kind of took over and went wild.
No, that's totally okay. I mean, we're talking about the market and, checking your phone too much, and it's an addiction. That's dangerous, as what you've been saying is.
It is dangerous, and they build these articles for you to freak out and click on them because they get paid every time you click. Every time you click on that article, they get a little money. And they can advertise. And when I say they get a little money, they can go to their advertisers and say, look, we have a 96% click-through rate with our clickbait. And that's what every news article has become. It used to be, it was a news article. Now it's clickbait. And they set it up, 52% of houses lose value. Oh my God, I'm losing value. My house is plummeting. I need to read it. And then what you do is you click into it. You read the first 3 or 4 sentences. And when you read that article, when you get down about 6 paragraphs, because I read the whole article, that's where they say, well, the majority of homes are still worth well more than what they were worth 5 years ago, and everybody's okay. It's kind of boring when you get to the bottom and find out this was a completely wasted article because it doesn't mean anything to me. So just be careful. The phones are addictive. Social media is addictive, but now news and that's become addictive because they just want you to click on it. And if you're going to click on it, read the whole thing because I can almost guarantee you when you get down to the bottom, it's not what you thought it was.
Exactly. Just don't read the headlines. But it brings up a point here that I look for articles every single day. I like to find out more about the retirement industry, so I check the major news sites. But I only read the headlines sometimes if it's interesting. But a lot of them come up saying, oh, I've got $1 million. That's great. Is that enough to retire? Now, okay, I just heard your reaction to that. So, I mean, is that enough to retire?
Is that enough to retire? That's That's, to me, as a planner, that's almost as bad as, oh, I see this drug advertised. Should I take that drug? That's not how medicine is supposed to work. You're not supposed to hear a pharmaceutical company advertise a drug and then you as the patient go, oh, maybe I should call my doctor and see if I should be on this drug. No, it's your doctor's job to look at what your ailments are and then find the best medicine to fix those ailments. But because there's so much money in pharmaceuticals and the pharmaceutical company has realized that if we can advertise, we can make 10x profits. The same thing applies in finance. A few years ago, there was this big advertising campaign. What's your number? How much do you have? And do you have enough? And is it $1 million? Is it $2 million? Is it $3 million? It's not. That's impossible. You can't take everybody in America and say, okay, everybody in America, you need $1 million to retire. You need $2 million to retire. There are so many factors in there. There was another article I just read. It was, my wife and I are 65. We have $2.5 million in our portfolio, and we're arguing over whether we have enough to retire. And I immediately went, why are you arguing about this? Why wouldn't you just hire a planner?
You would think.
You wrote into this unknown person on this news feed and you gave them this much information. Hey, I have $2.5 million. Is that enough to retire? If a client or a prospect asked me that, my answer would be, I have absolutely no idea.
Why is that?
All you gave me was how much money you have. You didn't tell me how much money you need. You didn't tell me what are your monthly income needs. That's the important thing. Hey, Joe, I need $5,000 a month. Okay, great. So we have a number. We know what your monthly income need is. So that's where you start. So if you're at home and you're thinking, can I retire? What does your budget look like? What are you spending every single month? And I don't care what you're earning. You could earn $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year, $200,000 a year. That's not what you're making. They take taxes out of that. And you have health insurance payments, and you have life insurance payments, and you have 401k payments. So that 150 or 200,000 or 100,000, that gets dwindled way down, and then you get a paycheck. So the first place I would check is, what is your biweekly or monthly paycheck? What is that amount? And if you're comfortable on that, Doug, then we know how much you need. So that's step number one. How much do I need? Look at my paycheck. Am I making it by? Am I comfortable? Great. Okay. What is that number on a monthly basis? Okay, Joe, that's $6,000. I'm just pulling a number out of my head here. That's $6,000. Okay. So you need $6,000. So what streams of income do you have or will you have in retirement? Do you have a pension? Nope, don't have a pension, so forget that. That's the majority of Americans, so let's just go with that. No pension. Okay, so your two options in retirement, and retirement means you're not working, is Social Security and your investments.
All right.
So now we say, okay, you want $6,000 a month. Let's optimize your Social Security. How close between you and your spouse can we get that Social Security to that $6,000? Maybe if you push off Social Security, now I didn't say push off retirement. And I just find it so interesting that when I say push off Social Security, you at home probably thought, well, he wants me to push off my retirement. No. Just because you retired doesn't mean you have to turn on Social Security. And we're so tied into that. In our minds, we think, I retire, I'm going to retire at 62 or I'm going to retire at 65. Where'd those numbers come from? 62 is the earliest you can get Social Security. 65 is when Medicare kicks in. 67 is when you hit your full retirement age for Social Security. That is not when you should retire. That's just maybe should we be looking at Social Security as an income stream? Because I said you have two different income streams. You have your Social Security, but then you have your savings. You have that $500,000 or that $1 million or that $2 million. So now we know $6,000. So now we maximize Social Security. And maybe we can get that Social Security between you and your spouse. Maybe we can get up to $3,000-$4,000 a month, depending on how we do it. Maybe we can get up to $5,000. Heck, if we push it off, maybe we can get Social Security to the point that it's giving you that $6,000 a month.
Yeah.
Then our next step is, what's our shortfall? And our shortfall is the difference between Social Security and our $6,000. So, okay, maybe we decide we're going to retire at 65. We're going to turn Social Security on. Social Security is going to give us $3,500 a month. Okay, so we wanted 6. Social Security is going to give us $3,500. So our shortfall is $2,500. So we need $30,000 a year. That's not a big number. How much do you have in savings?
Right.
Oh, I have $1 million in savings. Well, then in that case, now we can go to your savings and say 30,000 out of $1 million, that's 3%. You're good. You can retire. But there's all those other questions in there that you have to ask, and you have to get to that point. But it all starts with, how much income do I need? And then you go, okay, well, that's one way. I could turn Social Security on. I could get $3,500 now. But if I push off Social Security, maybe I could get Social Security up to $5,000 or $6,000 between my wife and I. Maybe I get up to $7,000. So now I go, well, if I push off Social Security, maybe I'm going to spend my retirement first. So if I need $6,000 a month, I need $72,000 a year. Is $1 million enough to create $72,000 a year? Probably not. Okay. That's pushing it. Unless you're saying, I want that $72,000 for the next 3 or 4 years, and then Social Security will give it to me. Well, that's fine, because you're going to spend 7% for 3 or 4 years. Yeah, you'll spend the portfolio down somewhat, but then Social Security will kick in. Then you're not spending the portfolio, and then it has the next 20 years to build back up again. So this is what we do as a financial planner. This is what my firm does. This is what my advisors do every single day. People come into the office, people join us on Zoom, and they come to us with these problems, and we give them these solutions. So that couple that said, I'm 65, I have $2.5 million, we're arguing over this, within a 15-minute interview with us, we'll tell you, because we've done this hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, over the last 26 years we've been doing this for our clients. We can show them in just a few minutes. And then the two of you can stop arguing. You can say, hey, my planner told me this. And I hear it all the time. It's so wonderful. My clients will be at the grocery store. My clients will be planning a vacation. And they'll want to know, should we spend money or not? And the one will go, Joe told us to spend money. So we're not going to get that seat in the back of the airplane. One of my favorite sayings, Doug, is, and I say this right to my client's face, I say, either you guys fly first class or your kids are going to.
That's a good one. I like that.
It is a good one. It is. And I had a couple came in the other day like, Joe, we went on vacation. We flew first class and it was awesome. We loved it. I said, exactly. So all that money you've been saving, now you're enjoying it. And it's not a question of, okay, do I have enough money and can I fly first class? It's, we sat down with our planner. They build a plan for us. We know exactly how much income we have every single month for the rest of our lives. And if we want to splurge on something, we can sit down with them again. So if any of this sounds exciting to you, you can click that link on the screen. Maybe there's a QR code up there. Maybe there's a phone number up there that you can get a hold of my team, and we will build for free a financial plan for you. We'll do it via Zoom, no matter where you are in the country, and we will show you in just a few minutes how to maximize your Social Security. We'll show you how to reduce your taxes. I have dozens, hundreds of people who are retired 100% tax-free. We didn't even get into that in this discussion because I can't just talk about taxes. We got to make these programs exciting. But we can do that for clients. We can show them how to get that in those investments tax-free, which makes Social Security tax-free. Now you're getting $6,000 a month. You're not paying any taxes. And you're spending less of your portfolio because you're not paying taxes. And we'll build that plan for you no matter where you are in the country. We'll build that plan. And then you have that peace of mind. You're not going to be that person saying, well, do I have enough? What's my number? You're going to know. You're going to know what your income's going to be, what your taxes are going to be, what your portfolio is going to look like, how much risk do you have to take in that portfolio. You're going to be protected from liabilities, from chronic illness. We're going to cover all that inside your plan. And you'll have that peace of mind that, oh my gosh, I'd say 70+% of Americans heading into retirement do not have.
That is way too high for that. Real quick, I want to give out the phone number. It's 877-441-4905. 01, you can head off to Sequinox.com. That is Joe's website. All right, so you were hitting on some taxes here real quick, and I got a quick story that I have a friend who's retired, and he kind of does things himself, but he has a financial advisor, and he was looking into do Roth conversions, and his advisor said, I don't do Roth conversion. I'm going, wait a minute, because you and I talk about this every single week, and this is huge. I thought Roth conversions are great.
It drives me crazy, and that's the issue in our industry. It's confusing for the layman to understand who they're working with, because we throw these titles around, financial planner, financial advisor, registered representative, insurance agent. What do each of these individuals provide for you when you sit down with them? What's their level of expertise? And so I would hope that the individual who said that was not a certified financial planner. I would hope that they're maybe not an advisor, but maybe they are, and they haven't educated themselves enough on how powerful Roth conversions can be. Because people's, in their minds, all they think is, maybe you won't be in a lower tax bracket, or maybe you won't be in a higher tax bracket. And they're not doing the calculations. It's really difficult if the advisor doesn't have the right tools.
Okay.
It's really difficult for them to see into the future to what your tax rates are going to be, what your income's going to be, if they don't have that tool. Now, I didn't have that tool, and I didn't like any of the standards that were out there. There's half a dozen of financial planning software on the pieces of financial planning software on the market. And frankly, I hated all of them.
Why is that?
Because they didn't give me what I needed. One would do Social Security planning by itself, and one would do tax planning by itself, and one would figure out Medicare planning, and one would do, asset allocation. But none of these pieces of software would talk to the other, and you can't do this in a bubble. You can't figure out Social Security in a bubble without thinking about, okay, what is that income going to do for me to replace that other income piece that we talked about? Okay.
Right.
And then that other income piece, is that going to cause Social Security to become, I just blocked the camera. That was a bad idea. Let me not do that. Is that going to cause Social Security to become taxable? And then is that other income piece going to be so large that I go into a higher and higher tax bracket? And is that other income piece, now that I have that income taxable and Social Security taxable together, is that going to raise my Medicare premium? There's all these pieces you have to figure out. So I just sat down with a programmer about 7 years ago, and I said, let's build a proper financial planning software.
All right. What does it do? What does yours do?
Everything I just talked about, all in one piece. So when I feed in their IRA information and their income information and their Social Security information, in a few milliseconds, it calculates the optimal Social Security income, and then it calculates how much their required distributions are going to be, and then it calculates their future tax brackets, and it gives me their total tax. I could hit a button, and in about 3 seconds, I can see every tax you're going to pay for the rest of your life.
Wow.
And then I can say, well, let's approach it differently. We know what your income needs are. Well, let's start filling in that income need different ways. Let's fill it in with Social Security early, Social Security later. Let's use IRA distributions. Let's convert to Roth IRAs, because if we convert to Roth IRAs, we have to pay taxes. You have to pay tax to do the conversion. But Doug, if I asked you a question,
all right,
do you want to, when you pay taxes, do you want to pay high taxes or low taxes?
Well, obviously low taxes.
I know, but I have to ask the question.
Okay, all right.
So you want to pay low taxes, right?
Yep.
And maybe you're not aware of this, but since you talk to me every week, you probably are. These are the lowest taxes this country has seen since the early 1920s. So it's fair to say these are the lowest taxes that anybody out there who's working or retired has ever seen. Right now, from 2025 through 2028, because of the extra standard deduction some people get, lowest taxes this country has ever seen. So when you do these Roth conversions, do you want to do them at a high tax or a low tax?
Yeah, low tax.
Low tax.
Of course, yeah.
And right now are the lowest taxes ever. So now you should be looking at this. I just did a plan for a couple, and 55-year-old couple had a nice amount of money in their retirement, and I did a Roth conversion scenario for them. And the Roth conversions will save them. The best I could do was about $800,000+ of tax savings, which is pretty good.
Yeah,
right?
I would say $800,000. Yeah, I'll take that.
But here was the issue.
Okay.
And this is what my software does. It's like, okay, well, he's under 55. So if we start doing Roth conversions under 55, we can't withhold the tax from the IRA. So we have to pay the tax out of our pocket.
Okay.
Because if we do the conversion and withhold the tax, we'll get a 10% penalty. And I really wish the IRS would say, you know what? You're going to pay us taxes. We're not going to charge you a penalty on a tax. They're just being jerks at that point. But that's the way the tax law is written. So I can't do that. So we sat down and talked. I presented the plan. I was like, hey, look, I'm not saying this is the plan you're going to want, but in this plan, the most I can save is about $800,000 of taxes. So we went back and forth. He had some cash, and he said, you know what, Joe? Let's plan on reducing our conversions until 59 and a half. And I have some cash over here that I can use to do some conversions. We'll do some conversions for the next 4 years or 5 years, because his birthday was in October, so he won't be 59 and a half until the following year. Anyway, long story long, I reran the plan. And now I can only save him like $622,000 of tax, which is still good.
Yeah, of course.
But that's how amazing Roth conversions can be, that I could build this plan that, upwards of $800,000 of tax saved because he did what he was told to do, Doug. He did what we were instructed to do, which was put a bunch of money away in your retirement account, and you should definitely put it away in the 401k pre-tax, tax deferred, because you'll be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. And that is the biggest BS statement that has ever been perpetrated on the American public if you are a good saver. If you're not a good saver, then there's a chance you could retire to a lower tax bracket. But if you've been diligently putting money into your retirement accounts for years and for decades, I've seen people go from the 22% tax bracket in working years to the 35% tax bracket in their retirement because they saved too much money. But if we do Roth conversions, we can get them to the 0% tax bracket, which is better than 22. And I can't get it much better than 0. So that's what we do every single day with these people is, I get on here and we love to talk and we love to share ideas and just talk about what's going on in the economy. But at the end of the day, what we're doing for people is giving them that peace of mind, giving them the income they need, giving them the comfort to know they're going to be okay in retirement, or even more powerfully, Doug, and my favorite part of my job.
What's that?
Is when I can show somebody that they can retire. And they can retire earlier than they thought. I've had grown men tear up in my office. I'm talking about like truck drivers and, blue collar workers, mechanics who just like get emotional when they find out that they've saved enough. And in their minds, they were going, what's my number? Do I have enough? And they didn't sit down with somebody. And when you sit down with us, we get rid of that unknown and we make it a certainty for you. We show you in black and white that you're going to be okay. So it's fun. I like it.
You like tax planning and you call it fun. That baffles me, but I think that's fantastic. And saving that much money on taxes in retirement, huge. What'd you say? 600,000, 800,000?
Oh, it's I've had $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.5 million. The younger you are when you start this, the more that tax savings grows. It's wild. If you come to me, it's never too late. I've done Roth conversions for people in their 80s.
Oh, wow.
The advisors who say, you shouldn't look at Roth, they haven't done it. They haven't sat down. They haven't calculated it out. What I'm telling you, what my software does, every advisor, every certified financial planner, they can do the calculations. It just takes hours and hours of work. It's what I used to do before I built my software. It would take us 5 hours to build a plan.
Wow.
of calculations and spreadsheets. Now what I did was I integrated it all together in a single piece of software. And as we know, computers calculate math way faster than humans can. And if we have everything pre-programmed in there, we just hit a few buttons, we fill in a few lines, and we get our answers instantaneously.
Like, how long are we talking here? 30 seconds, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour?
I can build an entire plan in less than 5 minutes.
Get out of here.
I can show you in less than 5 minutes. Now, if you come to me and you have 65 different accounts and I need to put all this data in, it might take me, it might. But when the data is input, I can get you an answer in minutes, in mere minutes. It's amazing. I can show you what your required distributions are going to be. You know what's crazy, Doug?
What's that?
Is I just said required distributions, and I have a feeling a lot of people listening don't know what a required distribution is.
All right, let's talk about it.
Well, I can't stand that we're fed these plans. Hey, invest in your 401k, invest in your IRA, and we're not told what the consequences are of those actions. We're not told that, hey, you put this money away pre-tax, meaning you don't have to pay tax now. It grows tax deferred, meaning as it earns money, you don't have to pay tax. But in the future, at some specified time, the IRS is going to come to you and say, you have to start taking money out now. You have to take your RMD, your required minimum distribution. And it might be a big number, and that big number might blow up your taxes. No one talks about that. And they need to know that. They need to know that if they do a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA or 403b, they will have a required distribution. If they do a Roth 401k or a Roth 403b or a Roth IRA, they will not have a required distribution. No one will come to them and say you have to take out money. Why? Because it's tax-free and the IRS couldn't care about your distributions because it doesn't help them. And people who say Roths are going away, I completely disagree because now it's mandatory that if you make over a certain amount of income, I believe, I don't want to say the amount, maybe I'll put it up on the screen here. If you make over a certain amount of money and you're contributing to catch-up contributions in your 401k, those catch-up contributions must be Roth. So the IRS is requiring people to put Roth money in their 401ks. So Roths are not going away, people. So use them. They're so powerful. And what's great is I am seeing younger people put money in Roth IRAs. I am seeing more 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds come through my office that have bigger Roths than 50, 60, and 70-year-olds. So I feel exciting about the future. I feel excited about the future. I feel like this could be huge, but it's just trying to get everybody to start thinking about it.
I'm going to go back to us looking at articles online, and I actually read one the other day, but just a headline, Joe, that was saying that Gen Zers are starting to save better than baby boomers right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Millennials. So let's talk about the different demographics. We got baby boomers.
Okay.
About 90 million baby boomers. Okay. Then we got Gen Xers. That's you and I, baby. Mm-hmm. The best generation.
Of course.
Hands down, we're the best. I had to say it, I just feel like we are. Gen Xers, only about 60 million of us. We're small. We're a small generation. So 90 million boomers, 60 million Gen Xers. And then they usually lump millennial and Gen Z together. There's about 120 million of them. And right now, millennials are the wealthiest of all four generations.
Why is that? I've always heard that millennials are having a terrible time right now trying to buy houses.
The ones that have houses, that's the reason is a lot of them already have houses. Okay. And those houses are what's driving their wealth up. Yeah, there was a report, I want to say 9 months ago, that came out and said millennials are now the wealthiest generation. Gen Zs are probably saving the most, which means in a few years they may become the wealthiest. Gen Xers, we didn't save as much. We didn't, but we're catching up. I, as a Gen Xer, I just turned 50. So this year, I'm able to do catch-up contributions to my 401k. You have no idea how excited I am that I turned 50, that I can put more money in my 401k. I love it. And I should specify, I do the Roth 401k. I don't do the traditional 401k. And not only do I do the Roth 401k, Doug, I do a mega backdoor Roth 401k, which is awesome. So I can put
world is
away
that?
a lot of money in my Roth 401k. I don't maximize it, but right now I believe the max mega Roth 401k you can do is close to $80,000 a year. You can put almost $80,000 a year away 100% after tax and have it grow 100% tax free. That's, if you're able to save, in my mind, that's the best way to save. But the issue, you're going to talk to your CPAs and they're going to go, oh, no, don't do that because you don't save taxes now, because that's what CPAs care about. They care about today. I care about the rest of your life. And I will sit down with that CPA and I will show them 100 different ways to Sunday why it's better to put it in the Roth and how much more money you can save.
Okay, real quick, let me interject here. That people, do they actually know about all of this? Because you're telling me a lot of news that I was not aware of. I'm just the average guy.
Yeah, that's, again, ding, 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 why it's good to sit down with a planner. That's why it's good to sit down with an advisor, someone who's knowledgeable in this area, somebody who knows all of this information. And I sat down with a really interesting couple. I presented the plan to them yesterday. Just a fascinating couple. These guys, man and woman, they both had great jobs, but they both were also, the husband was a firefighter, which, does it get more cool than that? I mean, come on. He's a firefighter, But he also ran a business on the side, which was awesome. And then the wife was involved in the restaurant business. She was a part owner in a restaurant group, and they didn't understand the accessibility of retirement plans. They were doing, and this is the second person I've sat down with. The individual I talked to you before that I saved the $600,000 in taxes. Right. It's funny, both of these couples were doing the same thing. They were just dumping money into a CD because they didn't know about what their retirement plan options were, because the owner in the restaurant group didn't offer a retirement plan. So she had nothing. And the firefighter had a great plan, but in his business, he had nothing because no one came to him and said, here are the myriad of tax laws that relate to you, and here's how much money you can put away. So it's like you start, and this is how I started with this couple. I said, okay, bare bones minimum. Right. We're going to make that Roth contribution. You have a bunch of money in cash, and I'm talking to you, everybody out there who's listening. If you're right now, and it's the end of November for us when we're recording this, okay, 2025. If you right now have a bunch of money in cash and you haven't made your Roth contribution for this year, what the heck are you waiting for? Now, you have to have earned income. So I'm going to back up. If you're working and you have a bunch of money in cash and you haven't made your Roth contribution, there is no downside whatsoever to putting money into a Roth, Doug. In fact, I would say I would rather you have money sitting in a Roth IRA than an emergency fund. And here's why.
Okay.
That emergency fund, if you don't spend it, it'll keep growing at a taxable rate. Your Roth IRA grows tax-free. So you can put money in the Roth IRA and you are allowed to take that money back out at any time for any reason without a penalty and without tax.
I didn't know that.
Now,
I was going to ask you about that.
Now I'm going to specify that's just the contribution. So if I put in $7,000 or $8,000 into that Roth, of $7,000 if I'm under 50, $8,000 if I'm over 50, that is going up to, I believe, $7,500 next year. But again, check up on the screen. I'll make sure I put that number up there. In 2026, that Roth contribution will be bigger. You can only take back out the contributions. So let's say for the next 3 years, you put $7,000, $7,000, $7,000. You put $21,000 in the Roth, but let's say it's worth $30,000 with growth. You're legally allowed to pull out your contributions, that $21,000 with no penalty, no taxes. So getting back to what I was saying, because this is what I do, Doug, I get off topic here. If you are working and you have cash and you haven't made your Roth contribution, open up a Roth right now. If you don't know how to open up a Roth, get a hold of us. We'll open that Roth for you. We use Fidelity. We'll walk you through the process of how to do it, how to get that Roth account opened up. But take that cash and stick it into Roth. Now it's growing tax-free. And you know what? Guess what? Guess what in January you can do? What? You can do it again.
Oh.
So this married couple that I'm telling you about, the firefighter couple, I said, look, guys, They're younger. So I said, we can do 14,000 today, and I think it's 15,000 in January. So in 3 months, I can move nearly $30,000 tax-free with no tax consequences. You don't pay tax to do that because you're making a Roth contribution from cash. So that's nearly $30,000 that I made tax-free.
Wow.
Because it's the end of the year, and so January 1st, I have another contribution I can make. So that's the basics. That's what I told them right away. We're going to get, and it was funny. Both couples were in the same situation that neither one of them had been funded. They had a boatload of cash. They weren't funding their Roth IRAs. I'm like, guys, you could have been putting money, you could have been putting $14,000, $16,000 a year every single year in your Roth IRA, and it could be growing tax-free, but you didn't do it. We're going to do it now. So that's the basics. Then you step it up and say, okay, well, I have a bunch of cash. Can I get it tax-free? Well, only if you're a business owner or if you work for a company that offers a plan. So for them, since they're business owners, it's like, hey, we can set up a simple 401k. We can set up a 401k. You can do $16,000 a year here. You can do up to $30,000 a year here. So it's having the knowledge that we as advisors have that we can share with our clients on how best to take that cash and make it tax-free. And that's what I geek out over. You know, when I get these people that have been throwing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars into CDs and, you know, savings accounts, it's like, guys, we can bump the returns up on this, but they'll incur more risk, of course, but we can make it tax-free. And then when you go to retire, we can access that money tax-free. So it's just wild that I had two almost back-to-back meetings with younger people, and they were in the exact same situation, which tells me, Doug, maybe there's more out there.
There has got to be.
Maybe there's other 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds who are sitting on a bunch of cash, and they just say, I just don't know what to do. And so I've just been dumping the cash. Maybe I'm a 20-year-old, I'm dumping the cash. I'm a 30-year-old. I've just been throwing cash into an account because I didn't know what to do. And you know, it's interesting.
What?
I think the millennials and the Gen Zs have a psychological small impairment because they saw the massive crashes. You know, they were children when 2008 happened. You know, and people lost their homes and people lost their jobs. Yeah. So they don't realize it, but on a lizard level, they're scared of the market. And so let us walk you through the process. So let us build a plan for you. I don't care how young you are. You know, let us build a plan for you and show you how to take that cash that you just have sitting there and make it work for you in a way that it's growing tax-free instead of taxably. And I don't think taxably is a word, but I'm going to make it up because it kind of rhymes with tax-free. Do you want it tax-free or taxably? Again, stupid, I know. So yeah, reach out to us. Let us build a plan for you. Let one of my certified financial planners build a plan for you. We don't charge for the plans. We build it. It's yours. We give it to you. You want to work with us? Great.
You know, the one thing that has been in my head this whole time is why wasn't that financial advisor doing Roth conversions? It's been eating me up for the past 15 minutes.
Because he doesn't know.
Okay.
It's simple. He was taught, or she was taught years ago, this mistruth, this lie. I'll just call it a lie. I was programmed this way. When I got my Series 65, when I got my CFP, 2 years of training, and they didn't talk about Roth conversions during my CFP. He didn't talk about it. Maybe they talked about it once that you could do it. We were taught that if you have the potential to retire to a lower tax bracket, you shouldn't do Roth conversions. And that is not true. And the reason we were taught that is because that was dogma for decades. And the reason that was dogma is because people didn't sit down with the software and calculate the taxes. And now that I have software that does it, I can mathematically prove to any CPA, to any advisor out there, how much tax you can pay. But if you don't have the software, in your mind, you think, retire to a lower tax bracket, should never do Roth conversions. And that is not true. Because I can get you to an even lower tax bracket. I can maybe get you to 0, which I think is the lowest tax bracket you can go. You can't get into negative territory unless you're a business, which we won't talk about that. So it's a lack of knowledge. I have studied with the guru of CPAs, Ed Slott. I've been an elite advisor with Ed Slott for going on 18 years now. which means twice a year, I fly to a destination and we spend 2 to 3 days, 8-hour days studying IRAs and Roth IRAs. And it's funny, I went to the first meeting way back in 2006, I think was when I went to my first meeting. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do this. It's a weekend and I'll know everything. And Doug, nearly 20 years later, I still don't know everything. And they come out, the book, the manual. I'm not kidding you. This is how thick our manual is at every single meeting. And 80% of it is new information on IRAs and Roth IRAs and the tax code. And we sit down from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. and we burn through it and we talk about it. And they do a great job of doing it in a way that's fun and entertaining. But, I'm a geek a little bit, so I love this stuff anyway. But I would say that's why
taxes.
It is, but that's why that individual who said you shouldn't do a Roth because they weren't trained on the benefits of Roth. It's kind of like, I'll tell you a story, Doug. Years ago, I went to this organization, and we would it wasn't Toastmasters. It was a different organization, and it was just a group of thinkers, and we'd get together, and one of us would give a speech on a topic. And there were doctors and lawyers and retired professors, and we'd have a dinner and someone would have a prepared speech and they would give a speech on a topic and then we would discuss it. It was so much fun. I loved it. There was a retired neurosurgeon. This was about 15 years ago, so not that long ago, okay? Mm-hmm. Retired neurosurgeon who, when he came into the field, he was trained on frontal lobotomies.
Ooh.
Do you hear that? Yeah, you went, ooh, like, ooh. But that was leading medical technology back then. And they would give him the ice pick, and they would say, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go into the person's home because this lady is having emotional problems. We're going to go in there. We're going to give her some general anesthesia. You're going to take the ice pick. You're going to go in through the eye, and you're just going to scrape out the front part of her brain. And you're going to cure her of her emotional problems. And you go, well, that's maddening. That's disgusting. That's caveman magic. What are you doing? You shouldn't do that. But here was a retired neurosurgeon who was taught that when he first came into his practice. At least he was wise enough to learn new techniques over the years, right? He was wise enough to see that that's not the solution. There's better solutions out there. And the reason I'm telling you this story is there's a lot of advisors who they get into the industry. They're taught something 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 25 years ago, and that's it. That's where their education stops. And they don't keep learning. And so they just say this rote information. Oh, you shouldn't do Roth conversions. It's like that neurosurgeon saying, well, if you have some emotional problems, I can come over with this ice pick and we can take care of this in about 5 minutes. We're just going to scrape out that front part of your brain. To me, they're the same thing. Like a frontal lobotomy and not doing Roth conversions are just as wild to me as an advisor. And so I think the difference is that advisor is not learning. They're not getting new information. They're not educating themselves. They're not making themselves a better person. I'm educating myself every single week, every single day, trying to become a better advisor because I want to look back at myself a year ago and say, oh, I know more than I did then. So now I can help my clients in better and better ways.
And that's why we call this show Retirement Everything They Never Told You. See, it totally makes sense now, Joe. Yeah, but I think people wanting to know more about Roth conversions, and you offer this plan complimentary, so why not offer this and see how much you can save on taxes in retirement? What do we have? Numbers up to 800,000 in this show, Joe?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And it just, you call the number, you go to our website, sequinox.com, you click on the link there, you can set up an appointment, you can do it via Zoom. We are available to talk to anybody in the country, and we can build that plan for you. It'll take about the first meetings, probably a 25-minute, 30-minute meeting. We gather the information. We get together with you in a second meeting. We present the plan to you. But in that first meeting, I can tell you roughly, here's how much tax we can save you. Here's what your required distribution is going to be. Here's how you maximize your Social Security. Here's what your income is going to look like in retirement. Can you retire? Can you retire? That first 30 minutes, I can do all of that. My advisors can do all of that for you. And it's just taking that step, saying, look, I have an advisor, but he's not talking to me about this. I have a planner, but they're not discussing this. I have a broker, but they've never brought this up. Well, then you get a second opinion. You find somebody who's more qualified in the distribution phase, and that's Sequinox. We can build that plan for you. Call that 800 number, scan that QR code, go on our website, get a meeting. Let us build a plan for you. Let us show you how you can retire with more income, less taxes, and a larger estate than you ever thought possible.
All right. Sounds good. Joe, this flew by. This
Yeah,
show
it does, doesn't
flew
it?
by. I had a lot of fun. I appreciate it. And I hope everybody out there got really well versed on Roth conversions, because I certainly did. I'm not a financial advisor. You are. And thank you very much for that.
And hey, thank you for joining us. We're here every single week. If you like information like this, make sure you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on that little notification bell, because if you turn on that notification bell, they'll let you know when I come out with new information. And every single week, I'm doing a 5-minute video on the economy. I do a 3 to 5 minute video on financial planning. We have this 1-hour podcast that we're here for you. And if you subscribe, you'll be notified by turning on that notification bell. And heck, leave a comment down below for ideas that we could integrate into our next video. And if you have questions, maybe leave a question and we can answer that question for you in one of our upcoming shows. Thank you for joining us. And as always, we'll see you next week.